Welcome back after the break, and let's continue with the questions. Our next questions is coordinates. Now, believe it or not, we still use coordinates today. For instance, if you need to go attend a wedding to find the correct location of where the wedding venue is, they usually provide you with the coordinates. Now, in this question, they ask you to provide the coordinates for the reservoir in G4. Now, I'm going to help you with that quickly. If we go to G4, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the reservoir that they're talking about. So now we need to go and read our coordinates. And you get your coordinates from the side. So you start with your latitude. As you can see, it's going to be 22 degrees, 19 minutes, and roughly 15 seconds. Now, if you look at our longitudinal position, it's going to be 30 degrees, and then we're moving to 1, 2, 3 minutes and roughly 50 seconds east. Okay, if you look at G1, there you go. Okay, so let me just quickly write it down for you. The correct answer will be 22 degrees. Always start with your latitude. 19 minutes, 15 seconds south, and it will be 30 degrees, 3 minutes, 50 seconds east. Okay, now let's quickly have a look at our next question. Which one, the topographical map or the orthophoto map, has a larger scale? Now that's quite simple. If you think of a topographical map, 1 to 50,000, orthophoto 1 to 10,000. So in reality, what does it mean? The orthophoto has only been reduced 10,000 times. The topographical map has been reduced 50,000 times. So obviously, which scale is bigger? The orthophoto. Now give a reason for your answer. If you look at the reason, and we just mentioned it, the orthophoto, as you look at the orthophoto, there's more detail on it. And we can also say smaller areas, it's greater clarity. And like I've mentioned before, 1 to 10,000 is larger, the scale, than 1 to 50,000. Okay, let's continue with our questions. Now, question 3 is the application of the theory. Everything that you've learned in climatology, geomorphology, settlement, and economic geography can be based on this map. It depends on what type of settlement it is. It depends if it's close to coastal areas, how it's going to be influenced by climate. And it depends on what type of primary activities, economic activities, exist in the area. Now, the first question refers to geomorphology, what we've learned about rivers. If we look at question 3.1, refer to the drainage pattern in blocks BC10. Now, the first question, identify the drainage pattern assumed by the river system in these two blocks. Now, let's go to these two blocks, BC10. There's block B. Now, let's just quickly move to 10. BC10, it's this area over there. Now, immediately, what can I see? All right, BC10, if I need to identify, there's A, B, and C. As you can see, the rivers joins at acute 90-degree angles. So our river pattern will definitely be known as trellis. Now, how did we manage to know that? With reference to the topographical map, explain why the river system assumed to this drainage pattern and block. Now, how did we know it's a trellis pattern? First of all, like I've just mentioned, the tributaries join the mainstream at 90-degree angles. Another reason that we can mention, the tributaries is very short. And our last reason that we can mention, the mainstream flows on the valley floor. Okay, so there's our 3 reasons why we can identify it as a trellis pattern. Now, if you look at question 3.2, refer to the houses found in blocks J and K8 on the topographical map. Identify the settlement pattern of these buildings. Now, let's go to J and K8. Now, it's this area over here. Now, immediately what can we see? We can see the settlement pattern. Immediately we can't see that they're not together. They're quite far from one another, next to a road. So immediately it's definitely a rural settlement, and it's definitely isolated farmsteads, and definitely dispersed, far from one another. Identify the settlement pattern, isolate it. How did we know it's isolated? Because they are far from other farmsteads, and they are definitely dispersed. Okay. Give one reason for your answer to question 3.2.1. The buildings are very far from one another. Are very far from one another. And obviously, sometimes there's advantages and the disadvantages. Pay attention to those as well. Now, there you go. There's the next question with reference to the topographical map. State any 2 problems, disadvantages that these people can experience in these houses. Now, first of all, security reasons, right? That might be of it. Now, it's obviously security reasons. Now, we know about a lot of farm attacks in South Africa, so when they're in trouble, they're quite far from help. A second thing, living so far from one another is going to create boredom. People are going to get bored. There's no social interaction. Another thing is they're far from services. So we can say it's far from services such as schools. Now, let's say, for instance, you live on this isolated farmstead. The chances are very good that your children is probably going to be in a hostel because the distance is too great to travel every single day. So we can say it's basically it's far from services, and it lacks services such as schools and that, and definitely poor infrastructure, meaning proper roads. It's probably going to be gravel roads is being used because there's not many people using the roads, and unfortunately you can't share ideas and equipment. Okay, so that's the disadvantage when people live on isolated areas, dispersed areas. Now, if you look at our next question, the N1 national route passes through MUSINA on its way to the border post between South Africa and Zimbabwe. 3.3.1 state one advantage of the N1 passing through MUSINA for motorists. Now, keep this in mind. So people traveling through MUSINA because of the N1 being constructed over there. Now, let's just quickly, that's basically your pass to move through to another country. So what's the advantages of this N1? Now, what can people do? Now, obviously, it's a very tiring road if you have to travel from Johannesburg. So what do the passengers do? People can stop to rest after a long journey. What they can do as well, they can refuel, stop at the engine garage, have something to eat, maybe have some coffee, etc. And they can buy goods at the garage. Now, often you see, if you look at the Shell garages, engine garages, there's usually a Wimpy over there, or even a Steers, so you can make a stop out of it, relax a bit, fuel up, and have something to eat. So that's the advantage of the N1 that's passing through MUSINA. Now, state one disadvantage of the N1 passing through MUSINA. Now, unfortunately, it's going to create traffic. Not really traffic, but it's going to create traffic in a way it's going to slow people down. Okay, it can create congestion. So eventually it's going to cause people to extend their journey because it's going to take them longer to reach it. And obviously with more people, it's going to increase the risk of accidents. Now, if you look at question 3.4, what evidence on the topographical map and orthophoto map suggests that MUSINA is a central place town? Now, let's just quickly go to the map. Now, the surrounding area, there's MUSINA. It consists of a post office, police station, caravan park, recreation areas. There's a rifle range. Now, look at the surrounding areas. It's mostly rural areas. So a central place town provides the surrounding rural areas with goods and services. Because if we look at MUSINA over there, we find quite a few services such as a police station, church, and schools. And there's even a couple of stadiums over there. As you can see, there's a fish farm over there as well, and a landing strip for aeroplanes. So definitely it's got more unifunctional as well as hospitals over there. It's multifunctional because there's also tertiary functions over there as well as recreation, so such as a golf course. So let's go back to the question. What evidence is there that it's a central place town? Now, I've just mentioned there's many urban services such as churches, there's schools that we've seen on the map, there's a police station. Now, before I'm going to continue writing it down, how do I know that all of these services are there? Look at the S, the K, the P. Now, if you don't know what they stand for, go down to your references and it will be indicated down there. If you can see, post office is only a P, police station is a PS, and a store and a shop is like a W. It's a winkel in Afrikaans. Place of worship is a church, S is a school, and H stands for hotel. Now let's just go back to our question. There's a police station. We've seen that. There's shops. There's a hospital. And there's recreational facilities. Okay, so basically people from the surrounding rural areas can come and get their goods and come get services from the small town of MUSINA. For instance, the people from the surrounding rural areas need to come and service their cars. They can come into MUSINA, or even schools, like for instance that isolated farmsteads where the kids can go to school. So that is the reason we can classify MUSINA as a central place town. Now, if you quickly look at question 3.5, Identify the man-made feature labeled J and K on the orthophoto. Now let's just quickly go to J and K. There's J situated over there. Whoops, I want to zoom too much in. And there's K over there. Now you need to do the comparison from the orthophoto to the topographical map. And on the topographical map, you will get a reference that represents it. And J will represent a cemetery. Now, what is a cemetery? It's usually where they bury people. Now you can go and look at the reference. There's little crosses. That's the reference. That's how you will see it on the topographical map. And K will also be indicated as a caravan park. Now, what do people do at caravan parks? They use it for recreation. Maybe after a long trip, they stop over to sleep over. Maybe on their way to Zimbabwe, they stop at the caravan park and stay a night over with some recreational activities in the surrounding areas. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break.